Good day to everybody. So let's begin our lecture. It's about translation types. The subject matter and main aim of the lesson is to inform the listeners about the translation types, and as well as we are going to speak about the meaning of some terms related to translation. And I do hope that this lesson is going to be very interesting, not very long and not very boring, and we'll do our best to inform you about the types of translation and various terms related to the aspect. So let's begin. The first question comes to our mind: what is translation and what is interpretation? What is the difference between them, between these two terms? So have you ever thought about these two terms and difference between them? Some people think that they are the same, but some people say they're different. They have got different meaning. So the first we are going to speak about interpretation or interpreting. Interpreting, especially the process when the translator work with oral speech. They translate the text orally, and that's why this type of translation is called interpreting. Especially we can see this kind of interpreting process during the conferences, meetings. Now what about the translation? It's a form of communication, of course, but in a written form. Translator translates in a written form from one document into another one in a written form with a pen. He works with a pen, he works with a computer. These are the difference between the interpretation and translation. So the target language, it is a language that someone is learning, and the language into which the text has to be translated. This is called target language. And what about the source language? Have you ever thought about source language? Source language, especially the language, usually it is a learner's native language, and especially the text is translated from, not into. So you can see on the screen three terms: translator, interpreter, and tour guide. Translator works with the written words. Interpreter works with the spoken words. But the guides work, welcomes, greets, gives information, explains to the guests or tourists. Now you can see on the screen different types of interpreting. They are the simultaneous interpreting, consecutive, escort travel interpreting, whisper interpreting, and so on. Telephone interpreting, you can see on the screen. What about different types of translation? There may be technical translation related to technical texts, IT texts, or engineering texts, or mechanical texts, and so on. This is called technical translation. When we speak about financial translation, especially it is related to the finance or banking or stock exchange activity or papers concerning to financial documentation. This is called financial translation. The next type of translation is called scientific translation. Especially it deals with the booklets, articles, theses, papers, Congress booklets, presentations, study reports, and so on. Especially translators work with the scientific papers, scientific research papers. The next type of translation is called judicial translation. Especially you can just see on the screen, especially it's related to judgment or just proceedings, expert opinion, judicial process, and so on. Especially it is one of the most difficult types of translation. The next type of translation is called literary translation. It's the hardest one. Especially it's related to the translation any kind of text like poems, novels, stories, and so on, which you can see on the screen. So the questions appear on the screen. So after the lesson you can look through again the PPT and read the questions and try to answer all the questions you can see on the screen. Thank you very much for your attention. That was all for today. Thank you.